Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into something absolutely fascinating today, one of the most drastic tactical paradigm shifts in the history of organized crime. We're going to break down exactly how Mexico's 5 major cartels evolved from quiet logistical smugglers into heavily militarized insurgent-style armies. If you are studying criminal justice, international security, or honestly, if you just want to understand the reality of modern transnational crime, this is absolutely essential. We've pulled directly from the sources to trace this unprecedented escalation, so let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, early routes and border routes. Next, the rise of the mega cartels. Then we'll hit the paramilitary turning point, followed by modern militarized territorial control. And finally, we'll wrap up by assessing the strategic landscape.
All right, Section 1, early routes and border routes.
To frame our academic analysis, we're looking at a timeline that really kicks off in the 1930s with the origins of the Gulf Cartel. Then boom, the late 1980s hit. We see a massive structural shift with the formation of the Sinaloa and Tijuana cartels. This sets the stage for a critical rupture by 2010 when Los Zetas declare their independence, and right on their heels, the CJNG emerges in the 2010s. We're going to explore exactly how tactics fundamentally mutated at every single one of these critical junctures. So, the most crucial thing to grasp about these early days, it was all about logistics. Literally, just moving product. The Gulf Cartel, one of Mexico's absolute oldest criminal organizations, started way back in the 1930s, based in Tamaulipas, right near the US border. And their early model was built strictly around controlling important smuggling routes into Texas. They weren't out to govern territory or fight wars with the state. In fact, their entire business model relied on invisibility. They just wanted to move illicit goods from point A to point B as quietly and as efficiently as humanly possible. Moving on to Section 2, Rise of the Mega Cartels. The landscape of organized crime totally fractured and reshaped after the Guadalajara cartel broke up in the late 1980s. This breakup literally seeded the modern underworld structure we see today. Out of the ashes, 2 distinct powerhouses step up: the Tijuana cartel, run by the Arellano Felix family, and the Sinaloa cartel. And guys, this era was defined by massive, unprecedented scale. We are talking staggering volumes of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana. When you're moving that much product across the border, you require much larger, sophisticated organizations, which inevitably sparked some incredibly violent border rivalries.
It's actually a fascinating contrast when you look at these two 90s titans side by side. On one hand, you've got the Sinaloa cartel, led by El Chapo Guzman and El Mayo Zambada, ballooning into this sprawling global trafficking network. But on the flip side, the Tijuana cartel took a highly concentrated approach. They focused almost entirely on the strict control of key trafficking routes right through Tijuana, bordering California. And economically, it was genius. Controlling that specific geographic choke point was essentially a license to print money. But whether it was Sinaloa's global reach or Tijuana's strict choke point control, the primary objective in this era was still pure, unadulterated route dominance.
Which brings us to Section 3, the paramilitary turning point.
Now, if you are studying criminal justice or security, this right here is the million-dollar question. What exactly triggered the shift from basic enforcers just protecting a smuggling route to full-blown militarized territorial control? Like, how did we get to a point where cartels started acting like small nation-states?
Well, the answer is Los Zetas. This group fundamentally ripped up the strategic rulebook. These weren't your average street enforcers. Los Zetas were founded by actual former Mexican Special Forces soldiers. Originally, they were hired by the Gulf Cartel to be their armed wing, but by 2010, they split off to run their own show. By bringing in formal military training, advanced weaponry, and ruthless insurgency tactics, they became virtually impossible for traditional local police to handle. They built a terrifying reputation for extreme violence, systemic kidnappings, and extortion. They weren't just protecting routes anymore. They were conquering territory, and in doing so, they established paramilitary tactics as the highly dangerous new standard for the underworld.
Look at the core objectives between these two periods, it's like night and day. Back in the smuggling era, the main goal was simply large-scale narcotics trafficking via logistics. Any violence that happened was largely just a byproduct of doing business.
But fast forward to the paramilitary era ushered in by the Zetas, the entire objective shifts to territorial expansion, extreme violence, and outright military dominance. The cartels realized a scary truth. If you can militarily control a region, you control everything inside it. Not just the drugs, but the people, the legitimate businesses, and even the local governments. The whole shebang.
Okay, let's look at Section 4, Modern Militarized Territorial Control.
Enter the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, widely known as the CJNG. They pop onto the radar around 2010 and 2011, and their expansion across Mexico was just lightning fast. Founded and led by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, the CJNG essentially looked at the paramilitary model pioneered by Los Zetas and said, let's scale this up to an industrial level. Today, they operate as one of the absolute strongest and most heavily armed rivals to the Sinaloa cartel out there.
And the tactical evolution here is just severe. When you start seeing customized armored vehicles, which are commonly called narco tanks, along with the use of tactical drones buzzing overhead, you are witnessing a 100% transition into an insurgent-style fighting force. They are no longer hiding in the shadows. Instead, they are overtly projecting highly militarized power and violently expanding their territory, challenging both their rivals and the state head-on. Naturally, this level of hyper-militarization forces a massive, systemic reaction from the government. You start seeing these heavy, convoy-style state police deployments that are now literally required just to patrol certain areas safely. And it's tragic, because you see crime scenes taped off right outside big-box retail stores. For modern policing and community safety, this is the harsh reality. Catastrophic, highly visible violence is no longer confined to isolated mountain routes. It spills directly into everyday civilian spaces, completely altering daily life for millions of people.
And the ultimate result? It's absolutely devastating. Looking at an aerial view of a sprawling graveyard is a pretty solemn reminder of the severe human toll here. Because when criminal organizations pivot from covert logistics to overt territorial warfare, the casualties skyrocket. From an academic perspective, what we're looking at is a profound systemic failure, where the escalation of these drug wars has deeply compromised public safety and community stability across massive regions.
Finally, Section 5, Assessing the Strategic Landscape.
This DEA map perfectly synthesizes the history we've just discussed into our current geographical reality. You can clearly see the expansive reach of the Sinaloa cartel, the concentrated pockets of the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas, and the incredibly fast-growing zones of the CJNG. But the really critical part? Those striped areas highlight the active conflict zones. That is exactly where these heavily armed paramilitary forces are clashing for territory and influence as we speak.
So let's tie this all together. We've traced a very distinct escalation arc today. For decades, from the 1930s all the way through the 90s, groups like the Gulf, Tijuana, and Sinaloa cartels focused primarily on route logistics and border smuggling. Keep it quiet, move the goods. Then the 2010s saw a massive rupture, with Los Zetas introducing special forces tactics and extreme violence. And that brings us to today, where widespread paramilitary territorial control is the norm, utilized heavily by groups like the CJNG. The structural evolution is undeniable. They went from logistical smugglers to standing paramilitary armies.
I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on, particularly for those of you researching the future of our criminal justice systems. As these cartels continue to adopt state-level military tactics, and we're talking deploying armored vehicles, weaponized drones, and specialized insurgent strategies, how exactly must international law enforcement evolve to counter them? Because let's face it, the old methods of simply intercepting shipments are no longer enough when you are literally facing down an army. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring these absolutely critical shifts in our global security landscape.